I think Nikola Jokic is about to make some basketball people around the country be forced to have some really uncomfortable conversations. Not uncomfortable for me, but for some. Even this past week, I'm watching ESPN and seeing people debate if they would rather have a healthy Joel Embiid over Nikola Jokic. I think these conversations are going to happen less and less if things go down this spring the way that I think that they're going to go down. Jokic is already an all-time great player. You can look at all-star games, all-star starts, being top 5 in the all-time triple-double list, already having won 2 MVPs, having a finals MVP. Nikola Jokic is one of 12 players in the history of NBA basketball, the history of the sport, to have multiple MVPs with a finals MVP. The list is only 12 people long, but the list that Jokic is going to put himself on later this spring, if he does what I expect him to do, it's even more rarefied air. Guys, Jokic is the overwhelming favorite to win MVP right now at minus 160 from my friends at Superbook. The next closest is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And unless an injury happens, it looks like Jokic is going to win his 3rd MVP. And the list of NBA players in the history of this sport to accumulate 3 MVPs, you know how long the list is? You don't need all your fingers on both hands. It's just 8 people long in the history of the sport. Their names are Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. Which one of those players isn't one of the top 20 greatest players in the history of the sport? I think 7 of the 8 of those guys are top 10 players in the history of the sport. And Jokic is going to be a part of that category unless he gets hurt. But let's get crazy. When you look at like a 10-day forecast, that next day is the most likely weather, and maybe 10 days out, it's the most unlikely or unsure. This next portion of the conversation is kind of like a 10-day weather forecast where I think it's reasonable to look ahead and predict. It's maybe not the first day of the 10-day forecast, but it's not the 10th either. And I'm talking about the Nuggets winning the championship. They're among the top 2 to 3 favorites to win the entire thing for a second year in a row. And if they go and do that, I think it's extremely likely that Nikola Jokic would win Finals MVP again in a landslide. If those 2 things happen, in addition to Jokic galloping his way to his 3rd MVP, Jokic is going to be on one of the shortest lists in NBA history. And that's the list of players that have 3 MVPs with multiple finals MVPs. So someone like Kobe Bryant is not a part of this conversation, despite having multiple finals MVPs, doesn't have multiple regular season MVPs. Same goes for Shaquille O'Neal. Same goes for Tim Duncan. It's a really small list of players in NBA history that have 3 regular season MVPs and multiple finals MVPs. The list is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. That is the list. You need only one hand to count, but by this spring, you may need that 6th finger if Nikola Jokic goes on to do what I expect him to do. And in terms of those uncomfortable conversations for people around the country, you are going to see people squirming in their seat.